Hi YouTube, it's me, Miss Kelly, and here's Frankie. I just wanted to come and talk to you about addiction because there's a lot of comments about Mama June and people who just don't understand how addiction works. Somebody just said to me on Instagram that people choose to be addicted to things, and that's not quite necessarily true. I was abused as a kid, and I turned to food. And food is a form of an addiction. Mama June must have, I don't know her full past or anything like that, but she obviously suffered a food addiction and still is. And that has transferred to a drug addiction problem, which is, again, I've mentioned this once before, where this is very common for bariatric patients. You know, when you cut off one addiction without going to therapy and working on it, then it's very easy to slip into another addiction. When you have weight loss surgery, it is very important to connect to a therapist as well as bariatric support groups. Otherwise, you can fall into something else. Unfortunately, with weight loss surgery, it is a requirement to go to a support group prior to surgery, but after surgery, that is not a requirement. But nobody chooses to be addicted to any drugs or alcohol or anything. So maybe some trauma happened into their life, and that's just the way it happened. I had trauma in my life, and it turned to food. I was actually a very small young girl, and then I was being bullied, and I turned to food. I also was on antidepressants, which caused me not to feel full as well. And let's take a look at the food that we have in this country right now. It's loaded with chemicals, so it's making it easy for us to become addicted to it. And let's not forget that people have accidents, or they have surgeries, or they fall ill, and doctors give them pain medication, which is highly addictive. So I don't think anyone really chooses to be addicted to anything. So, to throw that kind of shade at somebody is very wrong and ignorant. Nobody chooses to be addicted to food. Nobody chooses to be addicted to drugs. Nobody chooses to be addicted to whatever it is they're addicted to, shopping or whatever. It's something to fill a void. I know some people who have mental illnesses, and they take drugs to counteract the psychotropic drugs that are not, that have horrible side effects. Smoking is the leading cause of death of mentally ill patients because they smoke to counteract the horrible side effects in, like, a Klonopin or something like that. So unless if you know and understand what addiction is and how it works, because it is a mental disease, it's not a physical disease, and I'm not going to give it that. It is a mental disease. It's caused by trauma, just like mental illness is caused by trauma. No one is born addicted to something unless if, their parent was addicted while they were pregnant with them. That's a different story, and I'm not going to get into it. But to judge somebody saying, oh, why do they choose drugs? Why do they choose this? Nobody chose anything. It just happened that way because they were suffering from a trauma, and that's just the way they filled that void. Now, Mama June, when you have weight loss surgery, you are supposed to hook up with a therapist because, again, you have a high risk of a transfer addiction problem. I find that I cannot cope with the loss of certain food addictions if I don't go to my therapist or going to surgery support groups. And yes, they do have them. And I think that's where Mama June has been flawed here, is that she believed that the sleeve is a fix, and it's not. The sleeve is a tool, and she needs to follow up with a surgeon. She has to follow up with a therapist or a bariatric support group and work on the inner problem of her food addiction. And now she's going to have to work on her drug addiction as well, because that can also be transferred. So please don't go judging others unless if you know and understand how it works. Addiction is a disease, and it has to be treated as such. Yes, bariatric surgery is the main way to treat food addiction and obesity, but you still have to follow through with a therapist and a support group. Drug addiction too, they have to follow through with a therapist and go to drug rehab. But it's not our place to say that they chose that way. Nobody chooses that way. It just happens. And I'm sure somebody will disagree with me on here, and that's quite all right. But that's why society is the way it is right now. Let's not forget that medical doctors also prescribe addicting drugs. You know, it's not all on someone's fault. I know my kid's dad, he has a drug addiction to painkillers, in which he didn't choose. So, anyways, I'll see you guys later in the Sunny Sunday crawl. See you later.